The United States is one of the wealthiest countries on the planet. We have the most advanced medical technology in the world. We spend more money on healthcare per person than any other nation. We have access to more food, more information, and more resources than any generation in human history. So why are Americans aging faster, getting sicker earlier, and dying younger than almost every other developed country?
Educating myself and my employees and my family regarding health is incredibly important. There's so much that people don't know, and there's small things you can change to make a huge difference. Like I always ask people in my family, if you want a treat and a snack that's not so healthy or eat at a fast food place, just eat one healthy thing before the time. This can make a massive difference in the long term.
Researchers at the University of Southern California reported that the United States has experienced the earliest and greatest slowdown in life expectancy improvements of any comparable country. Also, Americans aren't just dying sooner, we're spending a longer portion of our lives sick, dealing with diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, cognitive decline. So what's actually going on? Well, today I want to walk you through exactly what's happening, why it's happening, and what we can realistically do about it starting right now. Let's start by talking about the food. Let me give you a number that I want you to sit with for a moment. 57%. And that's the percentage of daily calories the average American adult gets from ultra-processed food. In fact, according to CDC data, more than half of everything Americans eat every single day falls into the category of industrially manufactured food products. And among teenagers, that number climbs to nearly 67%. Now, I want to be very clear about what ultra-processed food actually is, because this goes way beyond fast food. We're talking about the packaged snacks, the flavored drinks, the frozen meals, the condiments, the granola bars marketed as healthy. These are not food in the biological sense of the word. They're industrial formulations engineered from refined or ultra-processed ingredients, additives, preservatives, artificial flavors, and oh yeah, seed oils. But here's what the research shows. A large-scale study found that for every 10% increase in ultra-processed food consumption, biological age increased by nearly 2.5 months. But it gets more interesting than that, because when we zoom in on the category of ultra-processed foods, there's a lot of noise around seed oils and the health risk that can be incurred. But the fact of the matter is this: there is one single substrate within the entire ultra-processed food category that is most consistently linked to morbidity or illness and death. What's that? It's added sugar. When we compare sources of whole food sugar to ultra-processed forms of sugar, and specifically in the form of added sugar to beverages, what we call sugar-sweetened beverages, the risk of diabetes alone goes up by 20+% per 12-ounce can of Coke or whatever your favorite drink is. That is absolutely insane when you think about it. And by the way, fruit juices aren't exempt. In fact, they're number 2 in that risk stratification category. The risk for every increase in consumption, 12-ounce increase in consumption, is 5% per drink per day. If that isn't shocking, I don't know what is. But before we get any deeper into the weeds in terms of what all this actually means, what the implication is, and what maybe the solution might be, I want to acknowledge something, because I know what some of you are thinking. You know this food is not great for you, and you're not eating it because you don't know any better. You're eating it because you're exhausted, you're busy, you have kids to feed, you have 45 minutes between work and the next obligation, and there's a drive-through on every corner, and nothing really else within reach, at least in terms of quality whole food. And I also want to acknowledge something. I live in the exact same world. I run 2 very busy clinical practices, surgery and longevity. I have 2 young kids. They play sports. They go to dance. It's extremely difficult to sit and plan a meal, find whole food, and prep it myself. That's just reality. The food environment that we're living in Americans, it wasn't designed with our health in mind. In fact, some would argue it was designed to corrupt our health as a means to profit. What we do know is ultra-processed food, it was designed for convenience, for shelf life, and for repeat purchasing. The combination of refined sugars, industrial fats, and added flavorings, it hits your brain's reward system in a way that whole food simply could never achieve. So the goal is to help you understand what's actually happening here so that you can actually start making choices that work with your biology instead of against it. And that starts with better understanding the real engine underneath all of this. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Insulin resistance is indeed the core issue. The data that we have connecting type 2 diabetes, which is nothing more than end-stage insulin resistance, is so compelling when it comes to your health. The risk of dying from anything, what we call all-cause mortality in the setting of type 2 diabetes, is increased 300 to 400%. Ultimately, in that condition, we are more sedentary as a society than ever before. Think about it. Kids are playing video games. Parents are watching Netflix. No one's moving. And these processes, they really begin to compound. Whole body inflammation, DNA repair. All of this is failing simultaneously as a direct result of a failed metabolic system. And the reality is, most people have no idea it's happening because it really at first, even for decades, it really may not manifest in any significant way at all. But it is quietly changing the trajectory of your health year after year. So we can actually reduce our insulin demand simply by moving, because what's the key driver of insulin? It's glucose. If that glucose is being taken out of the bloodstream before it ever has a chance to trigger an insulin response, imagine how effective that strategy is in managing glucose and insulin altogether. Now, this is not about aesthetics. This is truly about metabolic rescue. Most people think building muscle requires hours in the gym, years of experience, and a strict diet that you hate. But that belief is exactly what's keeping you from starting. You need to know this, that just 30 minutes of properly structured resistance training produces the same strength and muscle gains as sessions lasting 90 minutes or more. Let's dig into the role of food and the infamous diet. Because when I hear diet, and I think most humans hear diet, they hear restrict, restrict, restrict. And the brain says, that doesn't sound so enticing. So what's really important here? Small, consistent shifts that compound over time. I know it's cheesy, but the 1% everyday rule applies. You don't need to make radical change. And when you're seeking radical change, it is most effectively achieved by small, incremental movement with time. First, start adding whole foods wherever possible. Maybe add eggs instead of a colored cereal, real fruit instead of a flavored snack. And you just sneak a look at that label. Getting rid of added sugars moves the needle more than any single one maneuver you could possibly come up with. The human body is incredible. It's its own detox agency. It's its own metabolic workhorse. It's its own ultra highly regulated health and performance system. The problem is the world we live in, the lifestyles we pursue are rendering our bodies highly ineffective at just doing their job. Get back to the basics. 1% incremental change per day and target the things that have the most broad-reaching implications in your long-term health and well-being, and you'll come out on top.